Hello and welcome. My name is Joe Johnson. I serve as the Executive Director of the National Center for Urban School Transformation, INCUST. We are so pleased to welcome you to the second session of our Equity and Excellence through e-learning series. This session will focus on how educators can use online learning strategies to focus on student understanding and mastery. Since 2005, NCUST has been identifying amazing elementary, middle, and high schools that generate great learning results from all demographic groups of students, regardless of race, language background, or family income. It has been our honor to identify, award, study, and learn from great teams of educators who truly are generating multiple evidences of equity and excellence. Not surprisingly, we have seen impressive teaching throughout these schools. In our book, Teaching Practices from America's Best Urban Schools, we endeavor to describe the teaching practices we found most consistently across these outstanding schools. We try to describe in depth how these practices looked and felt. We try to describe what educators did and how their practices differed from the practices of educators in more typical schools. It's clear to us that the success of diverse groups of students is not an accident. It is a direct result of school-wide implementation of 8 powerful practices. We have learned so much from the schools we've awarded, and we continue to learn even more. This year, we had the opportunity to learn how teachers in our award-winning schools were adapting to the challenges of online learning. We were impressed to find that educators in these schools had thought carefully about how they could deliver equitable and excellent learning results in online learning environments. We found teachers utilizing the same core 8 practices, but they had thoughtfully considered how they could tailor those practices to work powerfully even when they did not have face-to-face interaction with their students. At INCUST, we firmly believe that our nation should applaud educators for their amazing efforts to adapt quickly to the realities of the pandemic. At the same time, however, we all know students have not benefited equitably. Like so many things in life, our first widespread effort to implement online learning is not necessarily the best we can do. This is a great time to ask ourselves, how can we get the most from online learning in ways that ensure equity and excellence for all the students we have the privilege to serve? We believe the teaching practices within NCUST award-winning schools can be applied in ways that make online learning more powerful and more effective for diverse populations of students. Our first session focused on how teachers could use online learning to lead students to feel valued and capable. If you missed seeing it, it's still available on our NCUST website at www.incust.com. Today, we will address another critical teaching practice. We have learned that in schools that achieve great results, students learned more, and especially diverse groups of students learn more because teachers focused deliberately and intently on building understanding and mastery for each and every student. Many of us have been taught that good teachers focus on covering the content specified in the textbook, on the scope and sequence chart, or in a state standard. When they have covered the content, they feel like maybe they have fulfilled their responsibility. Often, in fact, the results reveal that many students, many Black students, many Hispanic or Latinx students, many students who are learning English, many students from low-income families, and many others acquire minimal understanding. We've covered it, but we haven't led our students to mastery. In contrast, in schools that achieve outstanding learning results for all groups of students, we find that teachers are just not content to cover the material. They are not satisfied to know that they presented the content. Instead, they plan deliberately and work intently with the focus on ensuring that students, all of their students, are developing deep understanding and mastery of critical content. The move to online learning does not diminish this focus on understanding and mastery. In fact, in the highest performing schools, the move to online learning heightens the urgency to ensure that every lesson is powerful in leading all students to understanding and mastery. We are thrilled to have some amazing educators join us in today's webinar. They will be introduced shortly. As well, I am thrilled to have some of our talented InCust executive coaches leading this session. Just as importantly, we are thrilled that you are here. We know that every one of you has so many things you could be doing at this very moment. We're honored that you have invested this time with us, and we want to respect your investment by making sure we share practical, useful information that will help you advance both equity and excellence in your classrooms and in your schools. So thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kara Riggs, and I am a proud executive coach with InCust. And after a 30-year career in the Omaha Public Schools, I was blessed to join the InCust team in 2014. I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. We're fortunate today to have with us two truly outstanding former winners of InCust's America's Best Urban School Awards, both whose schools received our top gold level awards under their leadership. Like every one of our nearly 170 winning schools, these ladies led schools that achieved multiple very impressive successes for every demographic group they serve. For example, Latinx students at their schools outperformed the overall average for all students in Texas on their state's very rigorous achievement tests. We're pleased today to have with us, both from Brownsville ISD in Brownsville, Texas. First, Mrs. Sandra K. Cortez, principal of Mary and Frank Ituria Elementary School. And Mrs. Rose Longoria, former principal of James Pace Early College High School and currently assistant superintendent in Brownsville. There are so many extraordinary schools in Brownsville ISD. We're thrilled that you've agreed to join us today and share your beliefs and your practices. Your passion will come out like it always does, and the ways in which you've been able to create such outstanding outcomes for all of your students. Specifically today, though, around your focus on deep understanding and mastery for all students, and what that practice can look like in a virtual classroom. Now, one of the things we know for sure in our InCust research is that outstanding outcomes for all kids does not happen by accident. We have found that without a doubt, leadership matters in getting the kind of academic results that the two of you and many others in Brownsville are getting year after year. So Rose and Sandra, we're so happy to have you with us today and to hear your perspective on this particular topic. Personally, though, I have to say I'm so grateful for your willingness to always share the magic with whatever audience we call upon you to present to. You're truly friends of NCUST, and we are your cheerleaders in your work.
Thank you.
We'll come back to you in just a minute. To echo Joe's sentiments, the truth is the same teaching practices that we've observed over and over again in diverse, high-performing schools are still relevant and need to be adapted to all learning environments. So our session today is the companion to our blog, Teaching for Coverage versus Teaching for Understanding, and chapter 2 of the book Joe mentioned, Teaching Practices from America's Best Urban Schools, focusing on understanding and mastery. Today, we look at that practice in an online platform. We'll discuss what this teaching practice entails and practical approaches for teachers to implement in an online instructional delivery model, as well as how school and district leaders like Rose and Sandra can support their teachers in this new reality of ours. More than any other factor, NCUST has found compelling evidence that students are likely to perform at high levels when teachers decide what to teach, primarily based on what they believe their students need to understand and master in order to learn the most important concepts and skills associated with their grade level and subject areas. Students are much more likely to thrive academically when both synchronous and asynchronous lessons are designed not merely to follow a district pacing guide, but to maximize each student's understanding of critical academic concepts. I'm going to share a story that Dr. Johnson loves to tell, and I hope I can tell it as well as he does. A few years ago, during a conversation that Dr. Johnson and a principal of one of our award-winning schools, Joe asked him, what was the most significant change that was made that resulted in your schools moving in just a few short years from having truly dismal scores to dramatically different positive outcomes for students? The principal gave Joe a very strange answer. He said, well, back then, we used to teach kids like we were feeding the chickens. Baffled, Joe asked for clarification, and the principal explained. He said, when you feed the chickens, you strap on your bag of feed, you toss out the feed to the chickens, and if the chickens get it, they get it. If they don't, they don't. He said, that's how we used to teach school. We'd strap on our lesson plans, we went into our classrooms, and we tossed out the information. If they got it, great. If they didn't, they just didn't. This school moved from random acts of throwing out feed to teachers seeking evidence that kids took it in. They took it in, they ingested it, and they digested it, not finishing until all kids were full and had that deep understanding of what they wanted them to learn. Isn't that a great analogy? So unlike schools that are simply teaching content like they are feeding the chickens, we see time after time and in high-performing school after high-performing school that teachers do things differently. In those schools where the outcomes for students are off the chart, we consistently see these things around this particular practice. We see a focus on mastery versus a focus on simply covering the content. And we see very intentional collaborative planning towards mastery by their teaching staff. We also see lesson design that maximizes the likelihood that all students can and will get it, hopefully the first time around. And if they don't, we see attention to quick intervention and enrichment for those who get it early. We also see in these schools adult mindsets that all students can and will master these high-level concepts. The mindsets are there by all the adults in these schools. So our big question today, ladies and our audience, is how do we ensure these same practices in a virtual world of teaching and learning? Let's have our panelists help us to answer that question. Rose, let's begin with you. So good to see you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to remind people in our audience that you were a gold-winning principal at Pace Early College High School, and now you are supporting principals of many schools as their assistant superintendent. Can you please share with us the ways in which you've transitioned in Brownsville, the teachers and the students in Brownsville ISD, to this online new reality with a focus still on deep levels of mastery?
Thank you, Kara. First of all, I want to thank everyone, especially NCUS, for allowing me. It is an honor to be here present in front of you and given the opportunity to share our expertise and what we do in Brownsville, because what we do at my school or at Sandy's school, it's across, okay? It's the expectation across the district. So now that I'm at a different level, I can see that I do oversee about 18 schools and jumping from school to school and just looking for aha moments and helping, you know, so they can be the next NCUS Gold School. Because that's what they tell me when they see me. They say, I want to be the next NCUS Gold. So tell me how we do it. So it's exciting. So this transparency, of course, all this began at the beginning of, it all started, it hit us like in March during the spring break. And one of the things that I saw that we did that was very important, the communication and the transparency. From the beginning, from day one, we knew, we talked, even though it was unprecedented times, we were already working towards bringing everybody in, talking as to what we're going to do and how we're going to adjust to this new. It was a day by day, things were changing, but what we did was we got ready and to show and to ensure that our teachers were ready, our principals were ready, our schools were ready. We started by doing many surveys and finding out where the teachers were at, where they're beginning with. We knew we were probably going to go online, remote learning, but we needed to be ready whether it happened or not. We needed to know that the blended learning was going to take place because we were not going to leave any stone unturned and wait to see what happened. We were going to prepare. So as I stated, since March, we talked to teachers, we did surveys in the community, who has internet, who doesn't have internet, who has devices, who doesn't have devices. How did we make them feel comfortable and confident that they were going to do a good job? We expressed to them and we provided all the professional development possible that you can even think about. From asynchronous to synchronous, we started educating ourselves and educating them so we could be ready. The transparency was there. They knew exactly what was happening. The communication was there, the support. They knew that we were going to give them all the tools and resources that they would need, whether they were going to go face to face or they were going to have to teach from home. And they also knew that the expectation was not going to change, whether at the end of the year, because we did not have state assessments, whether 2021 we're going to have them or not, we instilled in them, it does not matter. We have to get our kids ready. Whether we're going to come back, whether they're going to be tested, where we're going to be accountable, whether they're going to assign us a letter grade, a ranking at the, it does not matter. We got to do it. So in order for them to feel the confidence, we got them the virtual, every single professional development you can think of, they received it. They received every tool that they needed, from teachers taking even hotspots if they didn't have the internet, computers, laptops, Chromebooks for students, everything we had to do to make sure that we were ready. That brought them a lot of confidence. You know what? We're going to get through this. So that's what we did. We did surveys. We found out what was needed. We identified teachers as beginners, intermediate, or very advanced. We joined them together so they could teach each other. We provided a lot of lessons online for them to learn. We gave them time for planning, lots of time for planning, and say, you know, we got to plan. We have to have, the curriculum department came in and just sketched the whole thing for them, which the scope and sequence. So we facilitated a lot for the teachers in the schools so they could have a better chance of being successful with our students. So I don't know, okay? Do you want me to go on to the next?
Yes, just go ahead and those 5
How do
bullets.
we maintain the data-driven decisions? Well, like I said, we talked to them, we said, regardless of what happens, we have to get our kids ready. Our kids need to be ready because our biggest fear is that the gap would grow and grow and grow. So we made sure that every single meeting that we have with our teachers, with principals, they're all data-driven and they're all purposeful, okay? They all have to be purposeful. Why are we meeting? Where are we going with this? The weekly meetings continue, whether it's asynchronous or synchronous teaching. We know that we're gonna share the data, we're gonna get better, we're gonna have time for planning, and we're going to be very prescriptive. We're gonna have, for example, it's asynchronous that was adopted by the district with synchronous checkpoints, which means that the kids have to meet every day with the teachers and connect. That was the expectation. And we have checkpoints in place. We have beginning of the year to find out our assessment, to find out where they left off and build from there, So that is very important. The meetings that we have, everything, the data that we receive from the kids, that's what drives us. And they already know, and that's not gonna change. Whether it's remote learning or whether it's face-to-face, that is not gonna change. That has to be our drive all the time. So we emphasize a lot on the data and making sure that we're following the kids to see where they're at. Every kid is an individual kid, and we make sure, just like when they were face-to-face, that we have them with the right teachers, that their schedules are made individually. We don't let it out into the system for the system to take place. We know our kids, we look at patterns, we study the data from prior years, and we make decisions to where the best dynamic, there has to be chemistry between that teacher, and we know that the kids that struggle the most have to be with our best teachers, our best surgeons. So we do all those decisions through the data. We maintain all the data is what carries on. And even though that we are right now remote learning, 90%, 95%, we continue to focus on that. The use of the master schedule, I have to tell you that, oh my God, the master schedule, it's the most important, precious tool that we have, especially in the secondary, but even in the elementary, because again, the instructional leader has to know every child and where that child is going to be successful. So you already start thinking about, and you don't, like I said, you don't let the system take place. You do it yourself, individual, manually, by studying the data and bringing in your team, because it's not the principal, but it's the counselors that come in, the teachers that come in. Everybody has a voice, and everybody's gonna make sure that Dylan is going to be with the perfect teacher so he or she, so he can be successful for the entire year. When we talk about absences, that's like a non-negotiable. The teachers already know that, and the principals, we know that if the kids are not there, there's not gonna be any learning. If you're not gonna connect with them, it's not, and it's very difficult. I'm not gonna tell you it's difficult. By a certain time, teachers report who's absent. And by a certain time, we say, okay, he was absent. What did we do to reach out to these kids? They send in the list, and then they have teams of attendance teams that go out there and look for the kids and make sure that they communicate. Now, because a lot of kids can be asynchronous, the teacher's responsibility is, if I didn't see you today, I gotta go look for you because I gotta make connection. Now, the beautiful thing is that we're also recording all our lessons, which is wonderful, because for those kids that are absent, they can always go back and listen to the teacher teach the class. Or maybe for some reason, he can't do the lesson. He was there, I did not get it. Mom comes in, let's listen. Getting that extra support to listen to the teacher and make sure that they're able to meet. Now, when the teacher goes asynchronous, which means that the kids are on their own and they're not face-to-face on the computer, the teacher is available for the kids to just pick up the phone. Those are the systems that we have in place. You know what? Or she's checking, she saw that face on the synchronous that Dylan was not getting it. This is her opportunity. Let me reach out to him, okay? So all those systems are the systems that the instructional leader, the principals put in place and the teachers follow. That's how we're reaching them through these times. Now, one of the things I really want to share about is the virtual classroom as an opportunity versus a barrier. Being that we are in a border town, being that we are, and a lot of kids come from Mexico, many times we don't see them. On a regular year, face-to-face, a traditional year, there was a lot of absences because the kids did not come in. For whatever reason, they closed the border. They couldn't cross. The tutora who they lived here, send them back home. Just different things where we have to go and advocate for those kids and look for them. Because it's bad enough they come in with huge gaps, but then it was very hard for us to keep them in school because it's a challenge for them because many have their parents in Mexico and they either cross every day or they're living with people here and it's hard for them because they want to see their family. With this virtual classroom, our kids can now log in from wherever they're at, from Mexico if they have to. So if they can't cross because the border is closed, hey, there's no excuse. We reach out, you reach out to the teens, you reach out to the kids, hey, I need to see you. And the kids, it's easier. And many times when we would talk to them and say, she goes, ma'am, you know, now I'm not worried that I'm not gonna make it to class because I can log in, okay? And I can still be in class even though I wasn't able to cross. You know, so to us, that is a great opportunity for a lot of our students, and instead of a barrier. So this could be seen as something in the future that even though we go back to traditional, we continue with the blended because every kid in our district has a device. They have providing thousands of hotspots. We've been working on this since before the year ended. All summer long, the principals came in, the teachers came in, and we worked to make sure that we were ready for the kids. And being with them on the front line, by their side, supporting them. What do you want? What do you need? Sandy being there and being at their service, because that's what we are. We're servant leaders. That gives them confidence. And that tells them, you know what, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay because we are getting the support that we need. Okay.
Rose, thank you. You know, it's always coming from you a message of by any means necessary. And you are the queen of knocking out barriers and seeing opportunities instead. So I thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Sandy, how about you next? As the principal of your elementary school, what are the ways in which you are ensuring in this virtual setting that teachers are maintaining a focus on mastery through their planning and execution of the lessons that they design?
Thank you, Kara. And of course, I'm humbled by the opportunity of being here and sharing with you all. We are in a very, in a situation right now where things might seem impossible, but they're not. Once we have our priorities set, and one of our major priorities is collaborative planning. It has its barriers, but not impossible. So we provide for our teachers that time. We've seen the power of collaborative planning. And what does that mean for our teachers? All of that planning is around that understanding that we want meaningful learning. So we look at our standards, we look at our students, and we want to make sure that we have that target instruction, looking for those aha moments. We're big in aha moments. You heard Ms. Longoria mention it. What does that look like? Well, it takes that intense planning of where are we falling short and what do we need to do? It doesn't stop there because we talked about enrichment. We have our students lined up. We have the students that need it the most and the students who already got the concept. So we planned for both and for that deep learning. As a school administrator, I'm sure that our teachers know that when we go in there, we want to see the academic conversation happening. We want to make sure that we see the mastery. How do we see it in a virtual environment? It is done through those academic conversations. It is done through students feeling comfortable with sharing. So that also takes planning. So during our collaborative planning, our PLCs, we invite our counselors to come in as well and share with us, okay, what are some things that we need to be looking for when the teacher is giving the instruction? And that takes looking into details from the background of where that child is getting that remote learning to their facial expression. So training was provided for parents for Google Classroom and for the Google Meets, for Seesaw, which are some of the platforms that we're using, and we ensured that our teachers felt comfortable with technology. It was something that hit us, and having a teacher of 20, 30 years, they're still doing grade book first by paper and pen, and then asking their colleague to help them put it into the system. So we needed to make sure that our teachers felt comfortable with the tools that they were using. Once that was set in place, we started with our planning, knowing our students, looking at data, looking at 4 to 6 weeks from last year, where they ended up, because that's when the pandemic hit us and we started with our remote learning with what we had. And now comparing it to what we have right now, we had our beginning of the year assessment, and we started to compare data. So do our conversations evolve around data? They do, but also around the whole child and what it's going to take. That powerful question that I ask our teachers: what are we doing different today to excite our kids into logging on tomorrow? You know, we made it through. What did we do? What did we do to get our kiddos to be engaged? So planning for those high levels of student engagement, what does that look like for us, right? It looks into of course, them being present. If they weren't, we want to make sure we know why. How can we better serve them? How can I better serve my teachers so they can better serve their students? Those high levels of engagements involve the high order questioning and allowing for that response time, which we can get lost in the world of making sure we cover rather than having that meaningful learning. So let's scale back here and dig deep into that meaningful learning, and it might require a little bit more time into the ELA, ELAR, or the math. If we're already on a roll here and we see that we have those aha moments, let's continue. Let's make sure that we allow our students to have those meaningful conversations. So that mastery, when you have them in the brick and mortar, it's a little bit easier to see because you have them, the kids know each other, they feel comfortable sharing. So all of that needs to be established prior to us ensuring that we have meaningful learning and mastery. Yes, we have our unit assessments. Yes, we have our end of the week assessments. We complement each other by having those virtual walkthroughs and having those questions for our teachers that inspire meaningful planning for meaningful learning. So we really pride ourselves in how we deliver the instruction when we're in brick and mortar, and even more now that we're doing our distance learning by utilizing our breakout rooms. Those are always for our teachers say, okay, we're going to do this. What is the first thing we need to do? If we're going to be brave and use breakout rooms, we need to make sure we establish norms. The negotiables, the non-negotiables, and our students and our parents know what is expected of those breakout rooms. It takes planning because we want to make sure that our Dean of Instruction, the education leader, myself, our AP are in there also assisting with monitoring our breakout rooms. We're elementary, so a lot of monitoring takes place when we have our students break out. Why are breakout rooms important? Because we want them to know each other. We want them to feel comfortable. Once a child feels comfortable in asking those questions, what's going to happen next? Engagement. And what's going to happen with that engagement? That deep learning and understanding. So we really enjoy using the breakout rooms. We have our shy students who might not say much. So we have our platform Seesaw, where we ask students to submit reflections, a synopsis or a summary of what they really enjoyed learning. That's one way. Another way is that direct question. Okay, I want you to tell me about story elements through Seesaw. I want you to tell me what the main idea was, and then share 3 top vocabulary words that you learned today. That's direct, but also allowing them to say, you know what, why don't you tell me what the best part of today's lesson was? So having that diversity and differentiated instruction for our students is part of that successful and meaningful learning, because we're targeting each standard, we're targeting each student, what they need to, and allowing them time to either respond, reflect, and be engaged. The application part of the lesson is the most important one. In a virtual world and the distant learning that we're doing, that is going to involve students, of course, submitting through Class Dojo. And then me, myself, my dean going in there and putting comments through Class Dojo. I really loved this assignment. I loved how you responded to question number 2. That is that part. But we want to see that engagement one-to-one by student to student. And we tell our teachers, allow for that time. Listen to what they're discussing and how they're talking about what they just learned. That is a great way to know whether they mastered what we just taught them. Progress monitoring, very important with that intervention for enrichment and collaboration. So our planning evolves and is around that. Collaboration, intervention, in understanding and enrichment, and just welcoming our students to the virtual world and making sure that they know they're valued, that they matter, and with that, they feel comfortable. And once they know they've got that first concept and we just made this huge parade and they can value each other and the teachers know that our students are climbing that growth track. They track their own growth and the teachers track it as well. And they submit that to us and they see that success, then we've hit a goal with them. So we're very proud of how we've managed to jump from the brick and mortar into the distance learning because we're seeing results. We're hitting our first 6 weeks and wrapping it up. And we've had great success with our students now. There's barriers, which is the connectivity, which is that comfort zone that together through our collaborative planning, we've managed to overcome. I'm very proud of that.
Thank you, Sandy. Can you just share, this morning you shared with me that you had 33 of your little ones come in and what a different feeling that was to have kids back in the building.
Absolutely. So today was the first day that we welcomed our students as far as our district employees and those students who might not have the connectivity that they need. So it's 33 here at Ituria and standing out there waiting for them at 7:15. Were the nerves there? Absolutely. Were we wondering, we have our plan, okay, what are we going to expect? Because it is their first day back. Seeing that 3-year-old get off her car with the mask and it went down, she adjusted it and her backpack, and I gave her that thumbs up, just reminded me of that why. That's our why, Kara, and the purpose, and just gave me the energy that I needed, because even though we haven't had our students here, we have been. Our walkthroughs, our virtual walkthroughs, we're seeing them through those little squares, and we're talking to them and we're telling them we're so happy to see their smiles. Seeing them today walk in through those doors just gave me the energy. I said, if that 3-year-old can walk in here with those pigtails, that backpack, shoulders back, chin up, and that mask on, and you can see the excitement in their eyes, we can do anything. And that's one of the things that we tell our teachers. The one thing every ranger, every student has in common is right past those doors. And now through distance learning, the one thing they have in common is right past this monitor. It's us. We're their consistency. We're their constant. And that is, if that's not enough reason for us to get up and do what we love every day, then I don't know what is. So today was a really exciting day for me because we got to see the students walk in. And of course, I was, everybody loves lunch duty. We can attest to that, right? But today was one of those days that I was extra happy to be pulling lunch duty. You guys, we've just got to be in there. So it was a really exciting day for our district. We're welcoming our students, and it's been a great so far. We've been here 4 hours, and we're no tears, smiles, and a bunch of air high fives.
Sandy, I know that your energy and your passion is so contagious on your campus. So those are lucky stakeholders in your school.
Thank you.
So see, folks, I said it. Great things don't happen in great schools without strong leaders. So again, thank you, Sandy. So I'd love now if you both, Rose, if you could come back to us, if you both could share some of the district and building leadership support of teachers in this new platform. So
you want to start, Sandy?
Absolutely. We, as an administrator, we get the support from our district, from our area superintendents, as far as all the training that was given to us. And there is no surprises. When I go meet with my area assistant superintendent, Ms. Longoria, October 5th, ma'am, I'll be there. She's already given me an outline of what I'm expected to go in there and expect from her. The expectation is set. So we do the same thing for our teachers. As far as our walkthroughs, they know exactly what is expected. We're not going in there to see what we can find, but what we can find. So that those conversations are held as to what our goals are, what are we looking for, as far as engagement, as far as the questions that are being asked. So for our teachers, they know what we're going to go in there and listen for. 1 week it could be for that high intense vocabulary, the DOK4 questioning. Another week we are going to go in there to see that we have that equity amongst participation with our low standard performing students to our high performing students, and how are we going to match them and have that collaboration. So the expectation is set for it, and we discuss it. We have those conferences of what we're looking for, from administration cabinet to us, from us to our teachers. And it doesn't stop there. Our community knows also what our goals and objectives are, very transparent, because we are going to reach them.
One of the things that I shared with them was, when they start setting their own goals, they have to relate them to the superintendent's goals. The superintendent has to submit his goals, right, for the school year. And so our goals, my goals, Sandy's goals, they have to be aligned. So it's very important. And even though we're over here in the glass palace, like they call it, 90% of our time is to be involved in the campuses, going from school to school, being visible, being supportive, being, taking them a little something to the principal, so then they can turn around and do the same for their teachers. Being available, being a sounding board, listening to teachers, listening to administrators. I know one of the principals, and I just thought it was really cool that every day at 3 o'clock, she opens a Zoom, and teachers can go in there and vent. Teachers can go in there and share. Teachers can go in there and ask. So she's there available every single day from Monday through Friday at 3 o'clock. Teachers know, you know what, at that time, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to go talk and I'm going to ask. So it's something very powerful. So the support it starts at the top. Our superintendent, it's very visible, goes to the schools, makes sure that he has many weekly meetings with the principals, listens to them, okay, what it is, and is very transparent, okay? And as soon as we have anything from our commissioner of education, boom, right next, we deliver. That same day, I'm texting them, this is what it said, this is what's coming, be ready. So, and just knowing that we're there for them. And like I said, the leadership starts at the top. We get the support from the board. The superintendent gives us the support. We go out there and give it to the principals. The principals go out there and give it to the teachers. But always be very, very visible, very at their time. Like I tell them, I'm not an 8 to 5 person. My phone is on 24/7. You need me, you call me, I will answer to you, because that's part of my job. And we expect the same thing from the principals and their teachers, because if a principal is calling, it's because they need something, and we have to be there with them. Giving them, like I said, the resources. They move monies around to make sure that every kid had a device, to make sure that kids had a hotspot, because if they don't, then the teachers are not going to be able to do their job, right? Especially because we're doing distance learning. Making sure that every teacher has every tool, allowing the teachers to move their classrooms to their home, okay? Take everything you need, set up your classroom, get it ready. So, you know, you can teach from there if that's what we're going to do. So the thing is, we're going to get through this. Sandy has a really good logo or theme that you tell the teachers that I loved. What do you tell them, Sandy?
We tell them every day is a great day to be a ranger. We are gold. We can do hard things.
We can do hard things.
We can do hard things.
That brings chills to me, you know, and it's like, oh my gosh. And like I said, it starts with the leader. And I'm just very, very blessed to be able to work with great people like her and share her expertise across the district and just service, because that's what we're here for, to serve.
Okay. Absolutely.
That's great. What we're finding across the country is frustrated teachers who are not feeling supported in this new work. They're feeling alone unless they have good leaders around them that are holding their hand through it, and they're providing grace, and they're still holding them high in the expectations that they have of them, and as far as instruction and getting kids to these levels of mastery. But the level of support for the teachers is just critical.
Before I forget, we have a curriculum department. We have all kinds of departments. Everybody has been here all summer long, but the curriculum creates lesson cycles, creates all these archives for them to facilitate, to make it easier for them. Don't go and reinvent. Look, here it is. You want to use it, you want to tweak it, but here it is, you know? So that's what they're doing, 24/7 working, thinking of ideas of how we're going, plans of action, all kinds of resources for them. So we can facilitate and make things easier for them, and they can feel comfortable. Allowing them to work from home is a big deal, Kara, and they feel safe. Providing with the PPE, everything they need, right, Sandy? I mean, they got everything from shields, from cover, the plexiglass in the off, everything is, I mean, the schools were transformed.
They were. And
right?
One of the things, yes, as our teachers wanted to come back and teach from the classroom, giving them that support and saying, you know what, let's have a walkthrough of the campus. Tell me what you see. Tell me what makes you feel uncomfortable, if any, so that I can call Ms. Longoria and ask her for us to fix it. But giving them that ability to say, you know what, come over. Tell me if you're ready to teach from the classroom, what you need, what I can provide, what makes you feel comfortable. And simple things like, will I be able to eat in my classroom? Absolutely. Absolutely. Will I be able to bring my own? Yes. One of the biggest things was as far as comfortable clothing, as long we're going to keep it professional. It's those little things that add up to a teacher feeling valued and supported. And then, of course, saying, hey, it's okay. We froze today. Do we have a plan? Yes. Our students know if the teacher freezes, give me 15 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Give me 15 minutes. I promise you I'll be back. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, your parent will get a message to Class Dojo, because it happens. So giving them that, telling the teachers it's going to be okay. We're going to encounter, and I've got your back. We're good. Because then I know that my area assistant superintendent, Ms. Longoria, has got my back when I call her. We were offline for 15 minutes for whatever reason. Okay, what was the plan? So as long as I can provide a plan, we are good. So I think valuing our teachers, reminding them of how important they are to us, because without them, this wouldn't be possible. In turn, our parental community, that plays a very big part, including them in what we do. There, if you go to our BISD website, you're going to see a whole section on parental training for Google Classroom and just being accessible. The way I see it is exactly what Ms. Longoria said. If I get a phone call from a teacher at 9:30 in the evening, this is the real deal here. She's thinking about something about school at 9:30 on her time. So you best answer that phone and be of service to that teacher, because she's doing something for our school or thinking of something that can make us better or something that might make her feel uneasy. So that is to be valued. Absolutely.
Well, that's, that's just such a testimony of the culture that you're creating by the, and how you contribute as leaders to the support that you put into your teachers and your family. So I thank you. We're running close to being done, but I wanted the audience to have some time in the chat box to maybe put a question in there and see if we can get through a few questions. So if you want to, audience, take some time to put a question in the chat box, we'll share what those questions are. How about if we start out with this one? The question was, how do your teachers use the breakout rooms in virtual classrooms?
Okay, so it depends on the lesson, mainly for that differentiated instruction. We can use it for intervention in peering our students, and that's where our Dean of Instruction and myself come in to give that support. Also, we've seen, because we've done our walkthroughs, where the teacher is working with the main skill while our students work on their own pace in
Looks like we froze, Sandy. Well, looks like we froze.
attention to those details. What academic conversations are happening in those breakout rooms? Because that's when the students feel really comfortable with their peer. Initially, it was for them to get to know each other in a smaller group setting, because again, they're not in the building. So we wanted to make sure that we provided that. And then another way is to pair them. I have maybe two, tier 1 with tier 2, and kids learn the best from each other. That diverse grouping, they learn. I mean, that tier 2 can be learning from that tier 1, something that tier 1 from that tier 2. Of course, they don't know their group that way. And they learn from each other, and they have those meaningful academic conversations. So it could be used in a variety of ways.
Sandy, do you ever have teachers share students? So we are doing the same lesson and we both find that X number of kids are needing intervention, and then we switch kids?
Yes, and that Google Classroom is wonderful, because with the link, once we share it with the students, they can do that. So that's that collaborative planning. And when we have that co-planning, we say, okay, we're going to, I know how to knock main idea out, and I'm going to take this one. So I'm going to take these students, and then I'll have teacher B say, you know what, you do that, and I'm going to go ahead and take fractions because I saw that we were low here, and I'll take this group. So we do. Our parents know at the beginning that, of course, that I'm your teacher of record, but depending as we have our interventions, our tiering, we are going to take that schedule and move our kiddos around. They're always within that grade level, so that's okay. And our parents know all 4 of our 3rd grade teachers, or all 4 of our, so we're not departmentalized, but we co-plan and we share each other's best tactics, ideas, and then our forte in depending skill or subject.
Okay, good. I have a couple of comments in the chat I want to share with you. One was just a comment that said, hats off to the 2 school leaders who have not forgotten about the fact that teachers are also human beings. So that came out clearly in your presentation. And then there's one good question here. It's, is there ever a legal concern about leaving students in breakout rooms unsupervised? Well, how do you deal with those concerns?
So we haven't had that concern, because as I mentioned earlier, it takes a lot of planning, where if a teacher's going, part of her lesson is the breakout room. Our Dean of Instruction and myself, we've made ourselves available because it was new to us. So that was one of my primary concerns, leaving elementary or any student really alone too. So it takes a lot of planning, where if breakout room is part of your lesson, they know to reach out to my Dean of Instruction and myself. We're teachers at heart. We're going to be there. So then when that happens, our teachers within grade level say, you know what, my activity today for reading is going to take, I'm going to have a 15-minute breakout session. So I'm borrowing Ms. Cortez and Dr. Lopez to monitor. And she has the ability to go in and out. I've asked them to please not leave our students unsupervised, because of course it's going to end up at my desk and I'm going to have to explain it to the parents. So we play a big part in those breakout rooms, and the kiddos love to see us. And then sometimes you hear them say, no, I want Miss Cortez, no, I want Miss McGrath, no, I want Dr. Lopez. Now we're going to be we're going to rotate, okay? So it takes planning.
Sure
And ourselves, making ourselves available for those lessons, which is the best thing I can do, really, to be part of a lesson. We love it.
And the more they practice, the better it gets and the smoother
Absolutely.
it is.
And the norms are very important. That setting the norms for those breakout rooms are extremely important, and getting the norms to the parents as well.
Very good.
Yes.
Well, we're running out of time, and I want to thank you again, and I want to turn then our last few minutes over to Dr. Johnson to wrap us up.
I want to, I'm sorry. I want to thank everyone. Thank you for your involvement today. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question, please feel free to send it to us at ncust@sdsu.edu, and we'll direct your question appropriately. I heard so many important things today. It's clear to me that if we are truly going to focus on understanding and mastery, we've got to plan in a way that focuses on understanding and mastery. And what these two leaders from Brownsville have shown is that planning is very collaborative. It's very deliberate. They're not just planning what will we cover, they're planning how will we know that students are really understanding and mastering this, and what will we do if we don't see that they're understanding and mastering, and what will we do if they are in fact understanding and mastering. So that planning is huge. Another really important point that we heard today is that if we're going to really and truly focus on understanding and mastering, we have to be constantly attending to whether or not we're seeing evidence that students are understanding and mastering. If we don't have evidence, then we might just be chicken feeding. And so it's really important, even in online instruction, to ensure that we're giving students the opportunity to check in, to show us they get it, they don't get it, they get a part of it. What part do they get? We really need that evidence so that we know that our students are making the kinds of progress that we need them to make. And if we're doing it well, we've got to be focusing on every student, not just the talkative ones, not just the ones who are most participative, but every student. Otherwise, we risk leaving some students behind. So I certainly want to thank everyone that's been involved with this. I want to thank our NCUS team. I especially want to thank Kara Riggs for moderating today. I also want to thank Assistant Superintendent Rose Longoria and Principal Sandra Cortez for sharing their time and valuable insights. And I want to thank everyone in our audience. We'd like to invite you to read the next blog and join us for our next webinar series, Promoting Clarity, which will be held on Wednesday, October 21st at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And please visit us at ncus.com to register. So thank you so much. We hope that this series will be useful to you as you redefine classroom instruction to ensure equity and excellence among your students in the context of remote learning. We look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Have a great day.